please remember to ask Ben Fowler's question when we get there, because I didn't make a separate copy of it. Yeah, that's the Dad's Red Ale. That's the beer that I brewed here with Slayer and with Tyler. And then this is the home game version that I did for NHC. And that was one of the things I wanted to talk about was NHC. Stuart, you got beers in, right?
Yeah, I got a beer and a cider. It was all I could manage to get together.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Sorry, Mike.
It's okay.
You can take pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
And Peter, you did not put beers, correct?
No, I did not.
You didn't put beers, you don't like to be judged?
No. Just by my peers.
Oh, I liked your beer.
Thanks.
Let me see if we can get better sound with the speaker.
Saying you need a speaker. I've got one.
This one, the only problem with it is it really does kind of create some lag. Hopefully it won't get
Your plug thing.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, over here. Is that loud? Can you guys hear us?
Still okay? Yeah.
All right, that's a little bit better. I'm gonna go grab it. You have your whole entire kid, you know, with the pain.
Yeah, James Pedisel.
Congratulations. So, JP had yet another baby. Only happy.
Wow.
There's no slowing that down.
Hey, I brought a little present if anybody wants a sample to try this out.
That's nutrient.
Yeah, Yeast X61. There was some discussion on the boards. I think it was Kale. And Kale, were you talking to Jason Iglesian Jones about Yeast X61?
Is that the African version? Yeah.
This is the yeast nutrient.
Oh, no, I don't think that was me.
Okay, somebody else. Anyway, if anybody wants some, you're welcome to. I brought some samples too. Oh, awesome.
We've got way more beer than necessary once again. I'll set this in here. There's a bunch of swag that I keep collecting from breweries and vendors, and it just is piling up in my house. I keep forgetting to bring it, but it's here now. So we've got people getting beers judged this week. That's exciting, but just hold your horses because it takes like 10 last year, more like 20 days for the results to get posted. There was a big snafu last year. But those will start coming out. So good luck to everybody there. And then I think a week later is when Bob's Beers down in San Diego get judged. Did anybody submit to any of the other sites?
Probably not from this group.
Yeah, I think just those. I think those were the only two locations that people got beers in. But I'm very excited that, assuming that everybody brewed beers of a high enough quality to get like above that 30 mark or whatever it is to place, or 28 I think it is, somewhere in there, we should possibly see 3 zero tolerance beers in that Seattle. Because I think that we've got 4 entries in there or more into that 31A category. So that's awesome, and that's like huge progress if we can start placing some beers.
Joe, do you as the club president, do you see all the entries for zero tolerance? You don't get any kind of list of? I
don't at all.
Okay.
In fact, I'm an idiot. Like I printed up my thing and I somehow managed to not even declare my own beers as zero tolerance until after the fact. So it doesn't say it on the labels, but hopefully when we run the results, if I place anything, it will say. This is the Dad's Red Ale that I brewed for the competition. I'm going to see how it held up because I haven't tasted it in a while. And everybody else is welcome to try it. Let me know what you think. It wasn't my favorite. Oh, yeah, that too. Wasn't my favorite Dad's Red Ale that I've done, but hopefully it'll be good enough to get, a high enough score. It's not. I didn't brew it wrong, so it should be good enough to get a decent score, I would hope. Not flawed in any way. Where does the dill pickle come from? That would be probably my fruit fly edition that I gave it.
Hops.
I don't that's why I was just fruit fly comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the hops are pretty standard. I mean, they're Cascade, Centennial, Amarillo, and Simcoe.
Sometimes you get that character off of like stuff now.
Yeah.
Idaho 7. People will deal sometimes.
I do less. Mine's less poppy than the groundbreaker version, and then kind of backtracked on it. I was like, oh, that's probably because they get so much better efficiency and extraction out of their closed kettle type situation than I would. I tasted the Dad Bread Ale when it came out like this. It's significantly more bitter than what I do at home. And then it's mellowed out over time, but I thought immediately like, oh no, what did we do?
Homebrew version comes across maybe a little sweet.
Yeah, it's definitely less bitter.
Hey,
Are you
Joe.
the homebrew version of Dad Bread?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay.
The homebrew version is more bitter.
I find it pretty hard with biofine, but that's probably the reason for that. I don't know if they find it here. Anyway, I'm glad Stuart's here because I did finally get the funding for the wiki. So
All right.
I want to meet me offline sometime, and I
Okay.
can be set up with whatever it is, the technology that you need to have set up. I got to still set up a bank account for the club, but I did declare the club a business so that we could have a business bank account
Okay.
in there that doesn't have so stuff can stop coming out of my personal checking account.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All that stuff. So we should be ready to start construction on the wiki.
Cool.
And all this talk that we've had lately about how definitely the club, or not the club, the gluten-free brewers, we should be petitioning BJCP for our own classification, for our own subcategory. Is anybody interested in writing something up on that? I'm finding myself having less and less time having just started a new job. But if anybody's interested in doing any sort of the technical writing behind that, it would be awesome help. And then we can kind of work through it as a group, form a committee, whatever, submit it to, because I know there's a formal process for getting these categories approved. We can get it over in front of, we can get it in front of, I'm trying to remember the guy's name that runs the BJCP. Gordon Strom.
Oh, Gordon, yeah, okay, yeah.
We can get it in front of them, and then hopefully they can consider us for our own gluten-free category, because I do think that we have pretty strong argument that there should be a category not just for the beers, but also they're prohibiting people with any sort of gluten intolerance or celiac disease from participating in judging.
Yeah.
Which I think, you know, they probably, as hard as it is to find judges, they'd probably be very interested in having, you know, a category where somebody's probably always going to want to volunteer to cover it. So that might be good angles for us to take. Wiki competition. Next month is, I'm sorry, in May, it's going to be Memorial Day weekend when the club meets. And I'm going to kind of put it out there whether or not we should meet on that weekend, if that's going to be a challenge for people or if that's actually better.
That's still the 21st or something like that? Is that the day?
I think it's more toward the end of the month. I think there's another Sunday at the end of that.
The 26th or something.
May 26th is the last Sunday in May, and it's also Memorial Day weekend. So I was going to put that out there. Maybe we should postpone or hold it a week before. Or something I wanted to talk with Kale about offline is, yeah, I know he wants to get Seattle involved with the,
Right.
with the ghost fish stuff and how they feel about that.
Yeah, it's I have it locked in now where the last Sunday of every month I should have the conference room that they have that's upstairs, they logged that in. I was unable to do it this month because they had scheduled a Pink Boot Society meeting today, so that didn't work out. But going forward, as long as that space is open, I just need to know in advance to get it booked up, I think, right? So
Yep.
just let me know what day you're looking for, and then we can try to work around that with Brian.
Cool. Alrighty, well, hopefully it won't be a problem for them to have it on that Memorial Day weekend, and hopefully we'll just see how it goes. But that's just one to be aware of. It's going to be rough with holiday scheduling this year because Labor Day weekend is also a last Sunday, as is Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving, I think. So the last Sunday thing is becoming, it was a good idea at the time, but this year in particular, it hits us like 6 out of 12 months that there's a holiday weekend in the last Sunday, or 5. So that'll be something to consider. I don't have anything else, I think, unless anybody else does. Does anybody have burning questions about the club specifically that they need answered? I've been not paying attention to questions and answers. I'm glad everybody's doing a good job of keeping the conversation going.
Yeah, nothing that comes to my mind immediately. Closing in on 500 people, it looks like.
I know. That's pretty exciting. 500 is a big number.
Yeah.
I didn't see that happening in the first, like, less than 2 years, less than a year and a half.
Like your club membership?
Yeah, 470 something was the last I saw.
So you guys are 75 online club?
Yeah, what we've got here is, yeah, there's, I think a lot of people didn't show today. It's kind of up and down with the local population, but as far as worldwide, we've got like 475.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's growing quickly. So
Europe, Turkey, Canada.
we had our first members from Mexico sign up this week. That was fun.
And it's quite a bit about like participation on boards too, and drinking beer together. I mean, that's what it is to be a local member.
Right.
That is the downside to not being a local member. Is that beer all seems to flow through here.
Yeah.
If it weren't so expensive to ship beer, I'd be trying to get it out everywhere. FedEx makes that difficult. Your club doesn't have a dues structure.
You guys are making me thirsty there.
Yeah. Hey, come on.
You can drive some of that up to Seattle, Joe.
Well, I'm late. I'm out. No worries. Oh, yeah. I'm good. Here, let's push that chair over. I don't need to sit anymore. And Brian, you're going to start your presentation. So oh, are you heading out? Yes. Brandon is joining us from EDX Brewers and also just as a grow visiting. He's a weed eater, but we won't hold it against him.
Not strictly gluten-free, but I'm in the area, so I thought I'd stop by.
Thanks. That's good. Yeah. This is, if anybody wants to try this is the where the homebrew recipe.
Oh, nice. This is Ben's recipe?
Yeah, I'm sorry Ben's not on today, but
No, I couldn't make it.
he hasn't even gotten to try this beer yet.
Thanks for the friend. Let's see around again. Holy smokes. That's hoppy. That's good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. Citra nuggets.
Nuggets and
Those
those belong to
mosaic.
This is the red ale that I brewed with Groundbreaker. That's the homebrew version. And then there's beers from Holiday League, Burning Bros, and Alt Brewing. Chocolate. Not in any of these. I don't think that there's
Does Buckwheat or does Reba have cacao nibs?
I don't know. That's what I was reaching for to find out. Oh, this has coffee. I don't know. Coffee's okay. This just has chocolate millet, which is not actual chocolate. It's just roasted milk. Okay. Yeah, I think you're good. I'm gonna rinse the tops of these off because the ceiling likes to drip, and it dripped some on top.
Hey, Joe, I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
I know that you said you had said, I believe it's Brian from Lallemand was, I guess, sending up some samples to Ghostfish, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make it there. So was there a package that went up to Ghostfish?
No. What's your name? Are you Peter?
No, mine is Kale.
Kale.
Yeah.
Well, Kale, my name is Brian. Nice to meet
Brian.
you.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do at the end of this this little talk here is I'm going to ask for everybody's email and yeast requests, and I will send that product directly.
Okay, cool.
So,
Awesome.
and I'll get into that here toward the end of my my ramble.
I've jumped the gun then. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.
You're being efficient.
Nice segue there, Kale.
Yeah, and if you want to go ahead and start your tangent, go right ahead. We'd like to hear it. We're all excited. We probably have a lot of eager questions and participation.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come down and talk with everybody. So I see this crowd here. Who am I actually looking at here? Is this,
Do you guys mind going around and introducing yourselves and where you're from?
I got 5 participants. Is that what I'm seeing?
Looks like it. I don't have my glasses on.
4 on the side there.
I'm not trying to look like an asshole here. These are prescriptions. Okay, so this is Stuart right here.
Hi,
He's
Stuart.
in British Columbia.
Where in BC?
Outside Vancouver, a little place called Bowen Island.
Okay, awesome.
And then you see Kale. Go ahead and say hi, Kale. I'll work down here.
Yeah. Hey, my name's Kale Baldwin. I live just north of Seattle, and I'm in Shoreline, so just north.
And Kale is our self-appointed head of the Seattle chapter.
Okay.
And those fish? That's a GF brewery. That's up in your.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start starting next month. For all of our meetings, I'm going to be co-hosting, if you will. There's a conference room that's at Ghostfish Brewing, which is a dedicated gluten-free brewery in just south of downtown Seattle.
Okay.
So I'll be co-hosting there. So if you ever make it up to Seattle, that's the dedicated gluten-free brewery in Seattle.
Cool.
Yep.
And then next, Tim, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. I'm Tim Davis. I'm from Brandon, Mississippi. I'm actually in Orlando today at Disney area, but I am the gluten-free group in Mississippi. So
Well, that's nice of you to join us, the
Awesome.
happiest club on earth.
Awesome.
that's right.
Well, cool. Is that it?
No, I guess that's it.
Okay. My name is Brian Perkey. I'm the regional sales manager in North America for Lallemand Brewing. We're a yeast and bacteria manufacturer. Started in Toulouse, France in the early 1800s. We're currently we're headquartered now in Montreal, Quebec, which is where my day started today at 2 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. So I'm a little grumpy. I didn't get my beauty sleep, but the beers are tasting good, so I think we'll be fine here. I started my professional brewing career in 1992 at the soon-to-be defunct Bridgeport Brewing here in town. I spent 18 years in breweries, working with the Yeast Labs and Lallemand, Muntons Malt out of the UK. I have a small cider label out of the Hood River Valley, and I am fortunate enough to have fallen into a profession that I know that I'm going to spend the rest of my life in the pursuit of, and not even scratch the surface. So there are those folks out there that use the term brewmaster. I'm not a brewmaster. I'm a brew bastard. Because the more I learn, the less I know. And there are those old timers out there that have forgotten more than I'll ever know. Now, all that being said, what you guys are doing is, from my perspective, something that is really interesting, intriguing, and exciting, because you, by force, have to take an approach to this world of beer that is very much non-traditional. So in the pursuit of that, you have to educate yourself about the science behind what it is that you're doing. And I'm sure that most of you know that homebrewers are some of the most rabid, crackhead brew folks out there. You guys are in it for the love and the passion. This really doesn't have anything to do without money, or what a bottom line is. So, what you bring to the final expression of that product is very different from what, somebody in a commercial environment is going to produce.
Our mistakes are a lot cheaper.
Well, maybe not. But look at a mistake where you F something up on the formulation side and you have a physical reaction.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a cost that's associated there. I'm going to be flat out honest. This is foreign territory for me, right? Gluten-free, gluten-reduced. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. I don't get poison oak. So allergies, reactions, like it's not in my wheelhouse. And I'm not to be condescending or dude, my basis of experience, I'm outside of my ballpark here.
Undiagnosed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the club mottos.
So, so now that being said, I have had some commercial experience in producing GF beers. One of the breweries or brewery groups that I worked with was the Gordon Beer Group down in San Jose. We were contracted at that time to produce one of the first GF beers nationally distributed, which was called Bard's Tale Ale, out of upstate New York. And so this was probably
2009, 2010. Is that the one that's come? I've had it.
You know this. Okay.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed in 2010, and 6 months before Groundbreaker opened as a place, and that was one of the 5 that was commercially available. I tried every commercially available beer. Yeah. I had it in my local market, which is the market that carries my beer now, because I'm already built. And that was one. Bard's Tale, St. Pete's Sorghum Ale, New Planet, Red Bridge, and Lakefront Snewgrass. With 5 that were on the market when I was diagnosed.
So I did try the New Grist. This was a while ago, and I wasn't a fan.
It's awful.
That's how we tell people to identify the flavor of sorghum. If you want to know what sorghum tastes like,
Try New Grist.
without trying to minimize it in any way, that's like the clearest expression of what a sorghum beer tastes like to me. Or maybe Red Bridge. Yeah, I've never had Red Bridge because I'm a little bit spoiled, but I got diagnosed late in the game, just like 2 years ago here in Portland, where there were already in existence 4 or 5, counting Fish up there. Plus, we get all the Glutenberg beers here, which is in Montreal. We get all those beers here, so I've been a little bit spoiled in my experience. I got diagnosed, and there was already great craft gluten-free beer. They didn't have to deal with Red Bridge. And I did see, I think, on one of the other gluten-free boards that Bard's is now being redistributed.
Oh, so it's not dead.
It was dead, but it's come back. Okay. I think I just saw that on that We Got Sick gluten-free beer.
I think I saw something about that too.
I'll verify that since I'm not giving the presentation, so I get to do something like that now.
Well,
Bard's Beer Post. This is happening. Bard's original sorghum malt beer is back.
We started with whole sorghum. We set up a dedicated feed line into the brew system, into the mash tun, with its own augers.
You guys hearing okay online?
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry. And with the use of enzyme and the dry yeast in the production of that product, in our test batches, that when we were using whole sorghum, we found that the husk was basically acting like titanium, and it was shredding the impellers of our pumps. These impellers, just the head itself is several $1,000s, and it was turning them into razor blades. The husk material was that abrasive how compared to barley husk. So we then had to go to sorghum extract. Came in like the big IBC totes, plastic lined, thick and viscous. Came out of the cooler. We had to fabricate a steam injection wand to liquefy that product, and then pump it into the mash tun. But as a result, that shit got everywhere. So imagine your brewery floor covered with sorghum extract. At the beginning of this project, I loved the taste of that stuff. By the end, everybody fucking hated it. But I'm glad that the brand isn't totally dead. It's resurgent. That was honestly my first exposure to sort. Well, the notion of what it is to be a snack and why this product is important to consumers, that hold that to the distinction. And then aside from the hard scale, it's the products here at Brown Baker that I'm close to. GF Brew. That's something I did. That's what it takes. I did taste some. Yeah.
I always try to bring beers that are distributed not in this market, so people can get different tastes out there. It's not just in our market. The holiday week, you write your own beer a little bit. Homebrew is in Madison, Wisconsin, and then Burning Brothers here is in St. Paul, Minnesota. Mysteriously, all the RX is disappearing around the house, so it's in the we're trying to stay out of the main thoroughfare there.
Yeah, so Monday was also
okay.
Cool. You're using extract or all grain? Extract. Sort of. All grain with everything else, but sort of extract.
The only brewery I've heard of that's currently mashing sorghum and not using extracts is O'Brien's in Australia. Everybody else seems to push over to that extract. Okay. And now that Andrew Lavery's left O'Brien's, I don't know if they'll continue to do it that way or not. It seems like a lot of effort. He was really the one true holdout on mashing, like fertile soil. And so, with my limited education on the gluten front, I know that there's two types of gluten beers that are traditionally out there. One is gluten-free. The other is gluten-reduced. And the only thing I know about gluten-reduced is the test kit is named after some Disney princess. Lisa, Arissa, Aisha, something like
Eliza.
Now, because the hard scale that we were brewing at the time came out of a commercial traditional brewery, vegetable brewery, I find that by the way. It was all based on what BPM final results are at the end of that test. Right. So I don't know what you guys do. I don't know if you are straight GF. Yeah, this club, the scope of the club is made from gluten-free ingredients. So nothing made from barley rye is within the scope of our club. Okay. So we don't have to go down that road.
No, and the reason for that is I interned in a really great barley-based brewery 5 and 7 more than that years ago, and I was sick for the time, and I never drank a drop of beer. So for me to, be diagnosed celiac and have and be around barley dust on everything, it's going to get into everything. It's going to get into my mouth. So my brewery is 100% gluten-free ingredients, and that's for me, my health first, but that's also for the health of my customers, because a lot of people come through also celiac. So,
or who have straight up meat allergy, things like that. No amount of gluten reduction will take away an anaphylactic reaction to allergy. So we just cover all our bases. What's called zero tolerance because there's no spectrum for us on what's gluten free. It's made from gluten free ingredients.
Okay, cool.
And that's considered here as well. They're certified gluten free. Nothing can come in either of those two doors. They saw the sign on the door.
And that's why dry yeast Lallemand is one of 3 that is reliable for us.
Pastel, mango jack. What about the
Danstar.
So Danstar, Holland.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
great.
that's right.
Mango Jack, violets, hard yeast. So it's really risky.
Okay. The mango jack, 5-3 yeast, and the licenses for like I broke down.
They purchase our yeast in bulk, and then what they do with it is they're at our biggest service stores being Star as well. They
Oh yeah, White Star. I was mixed White Star and White Labs.
So, okay, so GF exclusive. You don't have to worry about the clerics or the enzyme reduction. That's not what you guys are about. Right.
Right. So, by force, you guys have to rely on a different starch source. Yeah. Millet, sorghum, grouse and oil, wheat, progress. Yeah, rice, yeah, malted rice.
Lentils, chestnuts, candied sugar, traditional cane sugar,
Sucrose.
not everybody.
Yeah, that's so of our very small subset, there's a significant subset that won't do oats whatsoever. Just because there is a protein in oats called adenine that can produce a similar reaction to people with gluten intolerance and celiac. Plus, a lot of people are concerned about the seed stock itself being processed a lot of the time. I will do gluten-free oats myself, but I know several of our members just won't do it. I don't think it's good.
My father is oat-free, gluten shrimp oat-free, Yearly's oat-free. Evasion does do oats in some. And the issue is that some people still have a reaction to oats, even certified gluten-free oats. And so, yeah, and so we just leave it out as we use oats.
What about rye? Out. No, it's a fully. Yeah. So barley, wheat, and rye are the big 3 meat. Thank you.
All right. So, when it comes to yeast, it really doesn't give a shit about where the starch is. It's how that's converted to sugar. It's their food. And everything else aside, then we're all dealing with the same kind of problems. So, really, you need to look at if you go for brewing, is your yeast able to handle the sugars that are derived from your starches that cook your mash? Whether it's chestnut, Because yeast really is only doing a few things. First and foremost, we're creating alcohol. Right? That's kind of what this is all about. Did anybody make it a non-alcoholic beer yet?
No.
It'll
Gutenberg tried and did not succeed. They had to recall. No, that was Bernie Rose had a problem. Let me see if Gutenberg's. I saw that they had to recall it because the alcohol didn't meet the correct tolerances. But they did attempt it.
Not allowed to serve.
Okay, so number one, you're producing alcohol or not, based on what your goals are. The second thing that you're doing here is you're creating flavor, right? So in and of the yeast by itself, you're getting a flavor component off it, or it's a combination of the yeast and the sugars that you're using. The forest through the trees kind of scenario. And then the last thing that you're getting out of the yeast that you're using is a tactile sensory experience, right? It's either coming off as sour, it's coming off as dry, it's coming off as malty or sweet, right? So the difference between, say, like a light lager or a bock beer. Okay, so the both lager yeast make a different character out of the acid. So how you compose, create your mash in concert with your yeast strain. We're not even going to get into hops here, right? That'll be different. That's a whole other scenario. And there's a correlation between yeast and hops that will influence the character of the beer. We do that in 6 months. Okay? We'll just focus on.
We'll have you guys come in and do hops and then follow that up there. Absolutely. And it really comes down to an enzyme that's produced by some or not some strains. Glucose. So, it's usually moving the IPAs, the tropical, the TC, the J, all the shit I can say. That's a different case. But back to your guys' starch source and how yeast impacts with that is kind of what we're talking about. And without understanding the science of non-gluten grain stocks, right? Starch that is composed thereof, millet, sorghum, rice. The sugars that you're getting out of there are what? Glucose, sucrose. You're getting no maltose. We're getting all from malting these grains. So they're coming from millet and the rice specifically are two dedicated malt houses that are malting grains and the same as you with malt barley. So you're actually getting maltose and maltose off of whatever your wheats. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So that's all yeast really. That's all what most yeast really gives a shit about.
The difference is for us is if you're doing an all grain beer, it's pretty high maltose. Whereas if you're doing extract,
Well, the chosen extract is that malt extract that's in we
a lot of that's the funny thing is it acts more like maltose in it, but it's still low in fat. Whereas brown rice extract is like, there's nothing.
I've asked Ed, Bob, who did join us, he's more of the scientific slant, to probably provide some information on what actual sugars make our final. I don't know you.
Let's not worry about let's just talk about what the starch and sugars are of drinks that we work. Ed is our guy that really, I don't know his name. So as long as you are getting maltose and maltose out of your millet, out of your rice, out of whatever it is that you're using, that's all that yeast really gets about. Sugars. There are some yeasts that will utilize those sugars
Questions in the chat.
differently than others. So really, when you go about designing your beer, you want to look at those factors and how they're going to play an influence in what your final product is, right? So come off thin and light, come off big bodied and chewy. I've noticed a lack of bone retention, so protein creation. And those are some of the elements that you're not going to get out of, I think, simple starch and sugar matrices. So ultimately, your goal here is to not use a product that has any sort of gluten associated to that.
Right.
Why is dry yeast ideal for that? Whether it's ours or whether it's fermenters. And really, we're the only two major dry yeast manufacturers out there. So whether you're using Mangrove's, Safale, ours, it doesn't matter. And I use Safale 05 almost exclusively at my last brewery, and it's a kick-ass yeast. So I'm not here to talk shit about any other competitor's product. We're talking about the science of what it is that we're doing. The reason why you want to go with a dry substrate is the fact that it has not seen a gluten ingredient in its propagation from the get-go.
When is the media?
Molasses.
It is molasses, right?
So, but for both of us.
Great.
So we're both using molasses as a substrate.
That's something that's been told to us through oral history, but we need to hear from somebody who actually represents.
Yeah, it's a fact. We purchase thousands of tons of molasses from the international market. Now, whether those molasses manufacturers in the field, the supply chain is gluten-free up to the point of manufacture in our plant, I don't have the answer to that. But I do know that from downstream testing, from the raw ingredient stores before it comes into our plant and everything that's produced in dry product, any liquid product, because we do offer some liquid strains via Siebel. It's all grown on molasses. So you can, with confidence, go to any dry sachet out there and know that you're getting a GF product. Liquid manufacturers, dextrose is the big sugar that they're using for their propagation. So probably doesn't play well with you guys. Straight corn.
I'm sorry, who is it that's using?
Everybody else.
Well, I know Imperial
Escarpment,
uses
Escarpment, Omega, Imperial, White
Imperial
Yeast.
uses DME. They use 100% organic, free CFE. Okay. That's why we've always been scared of liquid guys. That's the only liquid guys I've seen.
I would guarantee that there is also some in there. Guarantee. So, but even then, with a DME or an LME, you're still in the malt substrate that you're growing yeast off of. So the question I had, and it's probably the biggest question I have for you guys, is at what point can you take a liquid pitch, right, from one of the liquid purveyors and propagate that up? How many generations and harvestings do you need to get to before you can consider that yeast ETF? I don't know. And I couldn't get an answer from my internal team before I showed it. So our R&D team is actually really small. We've got one guy that can give me the answer on this. But, you know, I would love to say, because as much as I want to tout dried yeast and like its glory and what it can do, I would hate to see that be a limiting factor in the pursuit of the beers that you guys are trying to make. You know, because we've only got 12, 18 dried strains out there on the market between the two major manufacturers, whereas you've got upwards of 60 plus, you know, from the liquid guys. Right. So if you could take a propagator pack, you know, smash that up and take a tube or whatever the White Caps guys are doing right now, and do a prop, right? Harvest that yeast, maybe do another prop.
I think the challenge for us is that our breweries are our homes, so we keep free homes. So bringing that into the home in the first place, probably the fact, would be pretty much when it's into our equipment. We probably would be doing that. Okay.
So I
know that some people do. I know the creation is all about buying the key, carbon on 48 times, and then
but I don't know. I haven't seen any signs. There's been no testing done on, you need to burn through 1 gen, 5 gens before you get that liquid variant to a state where it's not going to impact you as a celiac, right? I couldn't find that study.
I think the other thing that's in play too is that, the malt is a hard enough part of whether you're home brewing or commercially brewing, and yeast is so comparatively inexpensive. Dry yeast is so comparatively inexpensive that, why mess with it?
Because you're a commercial producer and these guys aren't.
Right, but also as a commercial producer, how many strains do I want to maintain?
Well, that's up to you.
Yeah.
But if you're a home guy that wants to fuck around and wants to try to use that yeast strain that
I see
Loki or pick your buzz strain of the moment, and say, I want to make a beer with that. Okay, how can you make a beer with that and not go into respiratory arrest or whatever it is that you guys deal with in terms of see that. So that's something that we'll explore further, and maybe we can have another talk in 6-8 months or whatnot, and I'll have some more information. I've also got a presentation. It's all in French, so I was trying to do some translation, which failed miserably. But we can maybe do this online where I can do a PowerPoint presentation and I can show some of the stuff that we've been working on in the labs for the past 3, 4, 5 years or so.
Yeast spread would not be bad.
It's one of the biggest questions that we get. Yeah. And definitely with Stuart and the wiki, that's definitely going to be a big part of what we have. I think that as far as the genetic variants that we don't get to have on a lot of our yeast stuff, I think the biggest drag for most is nobody's making a dried bread. It's not. And I saw that you guys have a sour pitch, which I think is Lactobacillus.
So it's Lactobacillus plantarum. We'll be releasing Lacto helveticus this year. I'll probably be doing the Bruckii next year, but I cannot get one of our plants to commit to doing the Brettanomyces as of yet. That being said, I think that there's an opportunity there to find a wild GF Brett strain
That would be great.
to work with. This is something I'll probably talk to Jess at Imperial about. We don't have the capacity to do it in a dried format, just because in order for us to produce any dried yeast, I got to be able to do 100 tons. 100 tons. That's a lot. That's shit.
Yeah.
So Imperial won't bring in any sorghum specifically because none of it is certified free, and they have certified organic, and they have that standard. So they couldn't get organic substrate into their place with basic organic. And that's why I was going to curious about the dextrose. I don't know that there's the organic dextrose out there. So I know that they're using the barley DMB in their crops. But I do love so far. But
yeah, there's organic corn out there. It's cheap sugar. So knowing those guys is set up, I'd be surprised if they weren't dextrose. But Owen does a really good job at addressing the market needs, especially at a grassroots level, and also getting him on board, to do.
I have a pro. We know each other. Okay. Yeah. And it was like $5,000 startup, which would, for our club is out of reach
for the moment. But you've got 500 members now. Look at where this is going. 10 years, right? Play the long game. You get somebody like
Zero tolerance, friends.
what's wrong with that? Everybody gets $10.
$10. Kickstarter to get some yeast.
So,
but that was just the
okay, but even then, on the breadth front, it follows the same rules as any Cerevisius. How many times do you have to crop and harvest that stuff, or you have a bread strain in liquid form that is GF free? I don't know that you know.
I think that you would have.
I don't think anybody knows.
I think you would have to at least. I think you would have to realize, or you'd have to do that pre-fermentation to find out, where you're at.
Or
burn
off the batch.
The technically valid and practically valid.
Or that you test out of New Zealand to actually get to fruition, and we can identify pieces of it to make sure that there's nothing. Then these things can be much easier.
Lebanon course is not going that far. So it's not going.
So you're saying that Disney Princess test
Can't
deal with
detect
alcohol?
Yeah. In the presence of alcohol.
That's fitting. It's Disney. Okay, so we know where yeast falls or doesn't fall when it comes to dealing with
She comes in at 10 people apart. So we'll have to make a whole.
Oh, sweet. You can't just take her out of it.
It's pretty tough.
It'll just
I would not.
Perfect. So we know how to make alcohol, and ultimately that's what the yeast is here doing, right? That's why we're drinking this, is for effect. Yeah, flavor is fine, community is fine, the history is fine, delving into the science is fine. But I think at the end of the day, we'd like to get a little buzz out of this, right? That's what yeast does specifically, produce alcohol. As a byproduct, you're going to get a few things out of the acid. You're going to get a little flavor, you're going to get a little CO2. So in the design of your beers, CO2 can be captured or not, but the flavor is the second most critical point of why you are using this. And you can choose a yeast that leaves its mark, or you can choose a yeast that leaves itself behind. So when you go in the design of your beers, an IPA, a stout, a Belgian, you really need to be looking at the flavor contributor that your yeast strain will bring. And again, it's all over the board. In that 15 strains or so that we produce from a dry manufacturer's perspective, we cover 80% of the ground. Most of the beers that you want to make, you can produce using a dried strain. 05, BRY 97, so 05 from Fermentus, our BRY 97. Those are similar to, not identical to 1056, 001 Chico strain. Yep. Go into SO4, would be akin to an English variant. So you want a little fruit character, you want some ester production. SO4, our Nottingham, our Windsor, our London ESB. So a couple of those strains don't utilize maltodextrose, so they leave that little bit of residual behind. You're looking to create a beer that has some body, that has some mouthfeel, that doesn't dry out as much. These are the strains that you want to look for. Those strains that don't utilize maltodextrose. And depending, again, it depends on what it is that your guys are trying to brew. I can't stand those beers, but that's my subjective taste. Of course, I can't stand almost any beer because I've been doing this so goddamn long that everything turns into a machination of, oh, what did they do? What did they fuck up? What would I change? How, you know, I can appreciate it, even if a beer is like fatally flawed. All right, I know what it is you're trying to get to, but that's why I don't do judging. So, because I'm not that big of an asshole. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like that.
Hey, did you judge me once?
Maybe. So really, you know, you're going to get alcohol out of the acid based on your recipe design, based on the sugar content of your words.
Okay, sorry, I thought there was only one coffee one, but no, that's the one coffee.
Damn.
It's supposed to be fried chicken. That's my favorite fried chicken's the best gluten-free meal in the city. It's great. It's so good. Really awesome.
So when you're thinking about flavor, when you're thinking about the beers that you want to create, you know, make sure that the yeast strain that you're selecting, it is an ingredient into your beer. So Belgian, you get those big phenols, that candy character that comes off in a double or a triple.
Yeah.
You want to do a saison, something that's a little more rustic, a little more earthy. You want something that's like straight up fruity. You want to try to do a gluten-free New England IPA. So you pick a yeast strain that produces a high level of ester. You want to do a wit. That's its own strain. You want to do a Bavarian Hefeweizen. that's its own strain. All of those flavor characteristics coming out of the yeast that you're using to produce your beer. It's really hard to make a Belgian wit not a SO5. It's not impossible, but it's very difficult because you're not using the yeast as an ingredient or a thumbprint in the eventual design of the beer. So you got to keep that in mind when you go to select the strain that you're going to use. And then the trifecta there, aside from alcohol, aside from flavor, but character. So mouthfeel, body, that viscous or not. Are you doing a light lager or are you doing a Bock? Okay, so either or is a lager strain. But how you treat that lager strain, how you set up your mash, your fermentation temps, your pitch rates, your O2 levels, all of that plays a part in the design of your beer. This is just one step of that process. And that's why I go back to the beginning of my talk is I never use the term Rubens, right? Because you can spend the rest of your life trying to figure this shit out. And you'll never get there if you're doing it right. You can find that formula that works for you or works for your customers, your family and friends, and stick with it. But when you go to experimentation, go to the design of your beers, you need to keep that in mind. The strain that you select will leave a huge, huge thumbprint on the final character of your beers. Or not. That's what you're going for. So, but in order for this to efficiently do its job, I can guarantee you that none of these strains have been tested in a GM application. Okay? So, in terms of flavor profile? Yeah. Like, we're not there yet. Yeah. We're too green.
I've got a good
we're too young.
batch of testers for you.
Okay, we'll get to that point.
This group and some of its members have written a book on brewing
and that's awesome because I think that what you guys are doing is you're pushing this segment of the market more so than say what a commercial guy does. Right? He's gotta pay bills, right? He's gotta get product out the door. You guys can truck around, and as long as it's not impacting your health, you have the geek mentality that homebrewers bring, the love, the passion.
And really what we say all the time is, like I had one of your beers the other day that you left on our opening. Like homebrews eat our lunch in terms of flavor because there's like literally no budget for a homebrewer necessarily. You can brew anything you want based on exactly. I gotta pay the bills. And I gotta make sure that what I'm putting in the bottle meets a certain price point so that I can actually afford to sell that beer. Maybe I can afford to make a smaller batch and sell it at retail that has a higher cost margin for it. But at the end of the day, the stuff that's out there everywhere, it's got to be able to make money. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Whereas, you can do 100% malt. You can do, some of the ones that I've seen on the from the members on the Homebrew Club is like, 1.01 or 1.107 original gravity.
Is Russian that he gets it back there. I can get it off the yeast. It's probably.
That's the one that brewed on.
Yeah.
Brewed on the anniversary day.
And it's like that's stuff that a commercial brewery can't do.
Right.
How long has it been sitting on yeast?
Coming on 2 months. Yeah. I got to get to it. It's got to go in oak for a few months, and then it's got to get kegged up for the next anniversary party.
When is that?
January.
Is that here?
Yeah. You should come.
I do.
It was a good time.
We had 70 different free beers between commercial and homebrewer. So, like, 50 some odd from the pros, and then 17 or so from the amateurs. We had Peter brought beer down from British Columbia. We had beer come up from Southern California, Central Bay Area, Eastern Oregon. We had beer from all over. It was great.
It was the largest collection of gluten-free beer that ever.
Yeah, we should get
I think I joined this like 2 days later.
Yeah.
That's cool. So aside from the performance basics, okay, we know we're going to produce alcohol. We know we're going to create some flavor. We know that we're going to get a character in the finished product, body, mouthfeel wise. You need to look at what impacts the efficiency of those processes, and that comes down to nutrients, right? Is your yeast getting everything that it needs in order to do its job? Your yeast was proofed in a malt environment, right? So when we do all of our testing in terms of efficiency and performance, we're using malt as a base. We're not using molasses. Molasses is simply there to get the volume of yeast to grow in the tanks. It's a straight sugar source. We buy in hundreds of thousands of tons, like giant silos of liquid molasses that come from South America, the Caribbean. We blend into a homogeneous state before it goes into our propagation process. But part of that is when we grow yeast, we are oversaturating when it comes to nutrients, because we need this, not only this yeast to grow, we need this yeast to be able to survive the dehydration process and then come back and perform as such. So Lallemand, we have about 3,000, little over 3,000 yeast strains in our yeast bank. We have another 1,000 to 1,200 available to us from our research and education partners, Illinois State, NYC, Scott and Berkeley Yeast Labs, Davis. I go on and on. We work with a lot of folks, but how much of that can we get into a dried state and then a reconstituted state that's going to make you good beer? Well, everything that we have in a sachet has been reverse engineered. We can't take 1056, dry it out, and expect it to come back and it's going to do the job, right? So we have to find that strain within our bank and then put it through its paces to prove whether or not it can go through this amount of stress and still make good beer through that. So our most recent release, which was the New England IPA, it's like, okay, so we want a yeast that will produce those tropical fruit flavors, that will leave some residual, some mouthfeel, some body behind, and we had to work backwards from there. We couldn't take Omega strain or Pure strain and be like, oh, we're just going to rip this one off and put it out as our New England.
But like you said, that's tested in a barley environment rather than a free environment. So
correct.
Whether or not it performs to create, haziness, stable haziness in gluten-free beer,
It's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah, it's not. It's hard.
And whether or not that strain that we selected in dried form that's going to make an outstanding New England IPA, okay, so you start mixing sorghum and rice and chestnut in there. What kind of character comes off of that? So the long and short is I can't guarantee you that this dried strain is going to work in your non-malt environment correctly, what I foresee it to be. So there's a lot of research and development that needs to occur, which we haven't done as a producer. And we tank that you guys, because how many batches of beer have you sent down the drain? Honestly.
Not that many. I can usually tough it out.
I worked hard for this. I got to drag your shit
My
out.
father-in-law will drink
We joke about our little corner brewing being twice as hard and 4 times as expensive. So yeah, 6 might be more like it. But, the cost of malted millet and malted rice is
That's probably through the roof.
Yeah. So to actually dump something, it would have to be awfully bad. You'd have to really.
But the downside of that is it can make you more conservative.
I dumped a sorghum sour. I dumped that raspberry more than I very much. Yeah.
I'm about to dump a fruit IPA actually.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Why?
I really went well.
So what?
It finished at 1.002.
Okay.
And so it's really dry, but it's too sweet. It's still too sweet. I used USO5 in it just for a nice sweet yeast, and the hop characteristic is there, but honestly, it tastes like
hot soda.
It tastes like
your hot soda.
Yeah.
Did you use any sort of amylase?
No, because that was a straight sorghum, cane sugar, and honey beer. Because in gluten-free beering, we've been talking about this on the board. Like maybe fruit is our thing because sorghum, honey, and sorghum, honey, and sugar want to finish with very dry.
Not honey. Honey has a sorbitol, right? So it is an unfermented sugar. Yeah, it will always leave the residual behind. It won't go dry.
With those meats get so dry because they have so much alcohol that it raises the specific gravity or lowers it so far down
That's
that little bit of sorbitol.
Yeah, because it's the mead experience that's
So it's adjusted ABV.
assumption.
Like alcohol by weight is a lot different than.
So, and there's some yeast strains. We have a few in our portfolio that produces enzyme that will get that dry finish out. So instead of using the SO5, maybe use I don't know strain maybe it's another strain that produces that enzyme to chew that stuff up. So that might be whatever that's.
But that was also an experiment.
And that's having fun.
Yeah, and it was an experiment to see, because honestly, that was a hot graveyard beer, just whatever was already open in the freezer that needed to be used, and it was let's make it low cost beer.
Okay.
What's that? Oh, as much time as you want. I mean, it's 3:17. We usually go till 3:34. So okay, we're not too structured, but
So I've only got a couple of things I want to go over here.
And then there'll probably be Q&A from perfect the crowd.
So yeah, so it really comes down to that last thing which is nutrients and enzymes. So does the one is the starch configuration broken down to the point where it will convert to sugar in your mash? And then 2, is your mash, or does it have the nutrients that are required by that specific yeast strain? And yeast strains are different. So say like the French Saison, the Belle Saison, which is a diastatic strain, right? So that's a natural enzyme producer. That's why that shit will go to 0.0. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. You guys are using a nutrient in your brewing?
There's going to be a lot of nutrient questions. Typically, I just get the Y yeast.
That nutrients, great stuff.
Yep,
It's awesome.
I don't know what's in it. I honestly don't.
Lots.
Everything. Yeah.
So I worked there for 3 years. out of any commercial nutrient that's available, I would choose that one over everything. The nutrient that you're getting is the same nutrient that they use in their processing and propagation, right?
Yeah.
So you can go to our website. We've got like 5 different nutrients, and they all have varying degrees of this, that, or the other. And we don't
And that's
have
the melange of all.
Yeah. Okay. It's what I use in my cider production.
Yeah.
Is the white stuff. But it comes down to
And they assured me that everything in there is gluten. They have
that I can't answer.
What is
They've grown their facility, they've grown their production. I worked there between 2002 and 2007, somewhere in 2005.
So you probably worked with Jason and Owen back then.
Owen took my spot when I left.
Okay.
Jason hadn't come on board yet. So, but yeah. Where was this thing?
I think I would imagine that in the yeast world, if you
Cestus low basket.
yeah.
And that's critical because I do know from my limited experience in using the sorghum, doing that Bardsdale batch, we had to use a boatload of nutrient in that production.
Do you recommend front loading with nutrients or staggering those additions for something like specifically this sorghum beer question that's come up? Because we're pretty confident that our malt beers have enough to be front loaded. But the sorghum beers, there's been a lot of discussion lately about doing staggered steps like you would with mead or even cider. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I would assume that front loading would be adequate unless you're doing something high alcohol, right? So where you're trying to get an 8 to 15% beer. That might need a staggered addition. That might need a secondary aeration. I would seriously consider those 2 tools in order to get you to that point.
We hear about a lot of beers selling out at 10-20, which is a pretty common thing that happens here. And you give it some nutrient, give it a shake, and suddenly it comes back to life, and you're looking at the 10-12s. That sort of thing. And that's kind of why people with the sorghum beers, the high sugar ones, have been wanting to check that out.
To do a feed.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why that yeast X61 is sitting on there. I'm talking to Jason right now, and I'm talking to Chris from Guzman as well about getting those fermentation times, because like 14 days is normal for me, but this beer took 6 weeks and finished at 1.020.
That one has a lot of cherry to it.
Yeah. Cherry and pear is what I taste.
And you used 05 on that?
No, that's I had a beer here at Groundbreaker that was in St. Denny's that they fermented with the California common yeast. They called it Beach Bum Denny, something like that. And I also make a double, and I use BE 256 usually with it. And I thought that'd be fun to try, and so I had some Mangrove Jack's California Common. I think that's M54 that I threw in there, and it stalled out. It stalled out at like 1.030, and so I pitched some more US05 in there and got it down to 0.020, and it tasted good, but it's not right.
So that Cal Common, did you pitch to a lager or an ale?
An ale. Just pitched to ale. Because that's Cal Common's supposed to be ale temp, right?
It's ale temp, but what it is an adulterated lager strain.
Right.
So by pitching to a lager,
I pitched an ale.
What I'm saying is, if you pitch to a lager, with that specific strain, that Cal Common, which is 2112 white yeast, all the liquid lights have one, you might be able to overcome that.
I used that California Common as well, and I had to repitch because it stalled out. Hey,
Where did it fall out for you at?
I think it was pretty similar, actually, about a 1.032, I think it was.
Yeah, mine was 030 or 032, and that was after like 4 weeks, because I used a BE256 on my Double, which is predominantly brown rice. Syrup is the fermentable in that, plus some other stuff, but mostly brown rice syrup. And with the BE256, it takes 30 days to ferment. And period. Like, you can set your clock by it at ale temperatures, actually ambient ale temperatures.
yeah.
30 days. And so I wanted to try because I tried the groundbreaker that was pitched with, that was fermented with the Cal Common. I wanted to see what it did with mine, and see also if it got a smaller or shorter ferment, and it was 2 weeks longer.
How are you guys doing your conversion tests?
That's all. You mean starch conversion tests?
Yeah.
That's all sorghum, or that's all syrups. So no conversion test necessary because it's already.
The all grain guys were using that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have a real complicated situation with our mashes. Generally, the gluten-free grains, millet, rice, and buckwheat, require a higher gelatinization temperature than the viable temperature for the amylase preservation.
Yeah.
So we have to basically either go in at a mash temperature that will preserve the enzymes, pull some off, and then heat up to a high enough temperature to gelatinize, and then reintroduce. Or we end up, in my case, I do a reverse step mash. I nuke everything, and then bring it down to its aggregation range, and then add in commercial enzymes.
What do you use for enzymes?
I use Termamil up here at the 180 temperature, which is where it's most happy.
Alpha amylase?
Yeah, it's an alpha amylase. And then I bring it down into the 150, 155 range, and then add 7-amyl L, which is happiest at that temperature.
Are you having stall issues?
No.
And I don't have stall issues on ones that I use. The enzymes.
I think it's more likely the people who are having a hard time are the sorghum syrup and brown rice.
Sorghum brown rice. Yeah.
Okay.
Which then the question is it a fan issue? Is what some are thinking and saying.
I think it's a combination, because I don't think you're getting the enzyme load that you need for complete conversion has contributed to refining. So I have gluco amylase in liquid form. I'll send you guys some. There are 1 kilo bottles. There's no charge. Just fuck around with it as you guys see fit.
For sure, those guys have.
It's GF. This is a fermentation.
Okay, so it's
product. Yeah, and you can portion out that liquid and just monkey around with it. I'll send the TDS, the technical data sheets with it, as well as best practices. And it's to market specifically for brew. So it'll take care of that issue.
Do you does Lallemand have the some of us have been talking about the specific sorghum, African sorghum beer strain, yeast strain? I think it's, what is that?
No, but I could
It's the one that I have. I have a sample fermentus of it at home in my freezer that I'm scared to try. As a lot of people have said, they've asked fermentus for it and they can't get it, and for some reason I have it because I asked for it, and so I want to get several people on board to use it all at once, so that when I open that pack, it's like 125 grams.
Okay.
Of what I have when I open it up, and we just haven't put it together yet.
Okay.
It's I'll get the number for you.
All right. We don't. In fact, this is a topic of conversation for a meeting last week, is to our R&D team and how we go hunting for new yeasts and their applications. So yeah, be interested in hearing about that.
K97?
Yeah, K97 is it?
I'm asking you.
I'm trying to get it. Sometimes their website doesn't.
This is a bit old. No, it's Belgian.
So yeah, so if your finals aren't turning out in character, mouthfeel, perception of sweetness,
Homebrewers have the mouthfeel issue. Is big.
well, that's one of the
Not a
things.
lot of residual unless there's too much
Yeah.
residual in our beers. So
But even my porter is called like a medium body, and the porter here at Groundbreaker is called like a medium body porter, and I'm finishing at 1.016 to 1.020, and still getting very full mouth.
You guys use lactose in your beers?
I know we do.
That's by choice or by volition, or there's
isn't that
that's what and this is one of the things I was thinking about on the plane flying in today is when I produce cider, so I make a base, make a bone dry base, and then I sweeten back flavor to character. And whether the grains that you guys use in GF brewing, whether you're able to create a matrix that will leave behind, what you're saying that you can create a multi-trios character or substrate in your beers. So if you choose your yeast strain that doesn't utilize, you get that, out of rote. B74.
Yeah.
Sap sorghum.
that's awesome.
So I have 125 grams in my freezer.
Right on. Yeah, give that shit a whirl. Like they do a really good job. Like I will never talk shit about those guys.
But that's not something Lallemand has yet.
We don't have that strain. No. We don't have a sorghum specific strain. So now so a little bit of shit talk. Now whether they source that in specific for that application, or they've taken one of their existing strains and be like, oh, this one works well in sorghum, so we can rebrand, relabel, but ultimately it's SO4.
Sorghum beer in Africa is a really big thing.
It's a huge
barley.
Yeah.
It's so I'm guessing that they sourced it from somewhere. That's the impression that they give. Now, if that's sales job by that.
That's how they make Guinness there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Using sorghum as their
They
base,
used
and
to be
they're
able to
bringing
get
in the
gluten-free Guinness.
bringing in the mix.
I think there's also a lot of lacto characteristics in some of the
That's
South
true.
African sorghum beers.
Lactose sour sorghum there. And the first beer that I did gluten-free was a lactose sour grapefruit ferment that was good.
So that's fucking awesome.
It was really delicious. It tasted like squirt soda, and it was summertime, and we just pounded it. I finished it with Brett, which kind of made it illegal here, but I've since brewed it without finishing it with Brett. And it's a damn solid beer. And lactose souring does really good things to sorghum, because sorghum's known for having kind of a metallic twang, and so are lactose soured beers known for having that kind of twang that kind of hits the metal. And when you can use that to play it up rather than take away, instead of trying to eliminate that sorghum flavor, if you can play it up and make it a benefit instead of a detriment, it helps a lot. That's why I'm kind of curious to try the sour pitch stuff that you guys got going. You've got the lactoplantarum, which we're getting from Good Belly capsules or the coconut milk.
Yep.
Coconut water. But you can never use the juices or the straight shots because those contain barley.
Okay.
So that's always been a challenge for us. If your specific health food store doesn't carry the coconut water or the capsules, and plus, they don't have any sort of actual certification on their labels. They just say gluten-free.
Okay.
So there's always that question among us, about like,
Is this just
are they
marketing-
just saying it's gluten
marketing
free because
or-
they're not using gluten in the production of, but is it coming in contact with gluten along the way? Are they taking this strain that's previously from the barley-based stuff, pitching it into the coconut water, and then you're getting cross-contamination? That kind of stuff comes into play.
Well, when I get everybody's emails and, I've got, and I'll send out to you whatever it is that you want to monkey with, but, and you can get on our website and take a gander at the yeast strains that we've got on there, but, we've got 4 or 5 English strains, a neutral American strain, a lager strain, Saison strain, a couple German strains, a couple Belgian strains, that sour pitch strain, the Plantarum. I'll send sachets out to you guys. Just let me know what you want, and how much, and I'm happy to dish that out. So
I've been using the Belgian Saison that you gave me for a number of our products. It's a great strain. It finishes super dry. It's got a great flavor profile to it, and we used it in the beer we brought to the anniversary, and I think that was our second gluten-free beer that we brewed, and I thought it did a great job. And fermenting to low gravity points, finishing particularly very dry, and it was. I would have to say it was a little at times, and I think this was probably temperature related, but it was slow. There was, because I come from barley brewing, home brewing, and I've seen rapid fermentations.
3 days and it's done.
Right. It took a solid 2 weeks at least, but it was consistent over 2 weeks.
So that's an indicator to me that because Bell's a diastatic strain, it's secreting an enzyme from the yeast itself that's chewing apart your starch matrix, right? Mm-hmm. So it's doing a continual conversion. That's why you get that slow creep, that slow fermentation. And that's one of my big questions about what you guys do or have to do in GF brewing is because you're using, in my mind, non-traditional starch sources.
Oh, no, they're definitely not supposed to be beer. Nothing that we use is meant to be beer. It doesn't want to be beer.
They don't want to be beer for
You
sure.
brewed for 3,000 years to be beer now.
Yeah, forget it. Just don't use barley.
Right.
Do we have a question from the crowd?
I saw his mouth moving, but I didn't hear any sound.
No. I just said that they definitely don't want to be gluten-free. They don't want to be beer. Most of our stuff.
Yeah, that's our biggest challenge. Is none of our ingredients are intended to be brewing beer.
So focusing on your mash regimens, focusing on an inclusion of an enzyme, I think is and an inclusion of nutrient to compensate for the deficiency that you might be getting, because I don't know what you're getting out of your non-traditional grains versus barley, which is traditionally a nutrient-rich medium. I think those are some key factors into making sure that your beers turn out where it is that you want them. So, I think that covers most of what I had. Amylase, glucoamylase.
Do you guys do
protease.
any enzyme production, or you're just bacteria and yeast?
So Lallemand owns, we are a yeast bacteria manufacturer. We own AB Vickers, which is an English company. And that's where all of our enzymes come from, nutrients come from. Started off as an isinglass company back in the late 1700s. Still.
Who
produce isinglass.
Whoever thought that that was a thing to try? I want to know that
Dude,
origin story.
that's my
Who
question.
thought
Like,
who you know what this
decides-
beer needs is some
it's
fucking
like
fish
fish
splatter.
splatter. Yeah, let's throw that shit in.
Let's make beers not vegan.
I think
you know,
I think the whole history of beer comes down to that question. It's like, who tried that first? Like, who decided, like, oh, yeah,
I can understand the sack of wet grain by the river that somebody,
like,
you know,
it's like,
got
I'm
into.
starving. I need to eat something. I need to drink
It feels
something.
good.
But, yeah. No, I think our history is all based on, like, how did that happen? Yeah. They're not first. So. Let alone Charles like, oh yeah, let's do that again.
Mikey likes it.
Mikey likes it. Yeah.
And what were the fans? Like, what were the ones that didn't work?
Like I said, I don't. You know,
You think about the history of things that people have tried to smoke. You imagine that it's much worse. People tried to ingest.
Like I said, I don't get poison oak. You know, I don't have any allergies. I rarely get food poisoning. I think my last episode was I ate a Reuben out of my buddy's, like, off his dashboard that they made homemade mayonnaise with. Oh, yeah, that one sent me to the hospital. That's my own fault. Yeah. Natural selection, terribly allergic there. Aside from that, like, I don't have issues in terms of what it is that, you know.
Yeah, I didn't think I did either until I found out for 30 years I had been fooling myself. 30, plus years.
So what was it?
I got sent to the hospital, like, with, just severe dietary type of stuff going on, and they said, well, we're going to have you
shitting,
tested.
puking,
Yeah,
cramping.
There was, not to get too personal, but there was blood involved, and they're like, okay, you went to urgent care, but there's blood, so you go to the emergency room. And I went there, and they did some tests, and they're like, well, we'll do some biopsies, and it came back celiac. And I said, no, you've got it wrong. I brew beer all the time. So they did the blood test, and they're like, no, it's celiac. And I'm like, seriously, you guys aren't getting it. They go, okay, swallow a camera pill. And I swallowed the camera pill, and it traveled all the way through my body, and they're like, dude, seriously, celiac disease, 3 tests confirmed it. And I'm like, okay, I guess it's probably celiac disease. So, you go through those stages of denial.
Right.
Finally, bargaining was, you know what, I'm going to brew with barley, I'm going to add the magic shit to it, and I'm going to do gluten reduced. I never drank that beer. I talked to Joe Casey from Omission. Like, his wife knows my wife. And I'm like, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to start making beer like you guys. And he's just like, it's not for everybody. And no, it's like, it definitely wasn't for me. I never tasted it.
Just the fruit.
I gave it to fans and I gave it
orally, right?
What's that?
You took the camera pill orally, right?
Yeah, I took it orally. That's not how I expected it.
I wish I got to do camera pills.
It was expensive. Like, it cost like $1,800 in the end.
Figure that shit out. I woke up during Landis stuff.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, so I went through all those phases before I realized, and I was ready to quit, like, just quit brewing. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then I tasted these guys' IPA, and I'm like, hey, this passes. And then I tasted their dark, and I was like, this is really actually very good. And I tasted some other people's beers, and I said, I'm going to try it. And like I said, I tried an ICC beer, my first one, just to, lactose, sour, grapefruit, Berliner Weiss, finished off with Brett. Something low, just low bar. And it was pretty good, and I enjoyed it. And then I did grapefruit IPA after that, because I heard about the grapefruit thing, and I'm like, I think I can make this work. And then, a couple more beers from here. Like, my third gluten-free beer was the one that won their competition and got brewed here last year. Or this year. It's on right now. So I've got kind of lucky. So, and everybody else has laid the groundworks, and I just started the club and decided to kind of create a welcoming space for people who are just figuring this out, because that's how I felt when I started. It was just like, where do you even begin? That's the whole entire point of the club, is this is where you begin.
Yeah, exactly. Any online questions out there? Anybody curious about what they can do with yeast?
Yeah, I've got one.
Oh, yeah, here comes Bob. Hey, thank you for joining, Bob.
Yeah, of course. Hey, this is what I usually do. I think it's a better point of view to be a fly on the wall usually. So I observe from afar, and then I, take a moment to come on in.
When I texted you, we had specific questions about all grain. The ratios of the sugars involved in all grain were gluten free, and we weren't sure how much like maltose, maltotriose, glucose, things like that are getting through. And do you happen to have any of those type of numbers?
I can get pretty close on estimates, but I don't have actual figures. But we're looking at like, so you want a malt breakdown, or do you want like what I'm usually getting in most of my actual like worts?
Do you have the numbers on what you're getting from your worts? Did you have them tested?
Well, I mean, I can get pretty close, but I haven't had them officially tested. But like, if we're looking at the way the ferments usually go, and based on the yeasts, we're looking at like, depending on what most of my grist are, which is like 95% millet, 5% or 4% rice, and then maybe the last bit being buckwheat. We're looking at something in like the 80 to 94% glucose, and then the rest being split into like a 2 to 1 and 0.5% ratios between maltose, maltotetriose, and maltotriose.
There's a way that you can adjust those ratios based on your mash regimen, or is the starch structure kind of
Yeah, well, I would say that, depending on like, so when I usually come at it from a lower temperature, I'm getting a much higher glucose content than when I'm saying going from a like high to low. So like a 165 to 150, 155 kind of a thing. If I'm doing that style of mash, I'm getting a little bit more dextrins in the malt than say if I'm doing from a lower side where I'm getting a much higher, say, glucose content and finishing much, much, much drier than average.
Bob, how are you coming up with those numbers? How are you figuring out what the glucose amount is?
Based on like the way that it ferments, really, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Because like, I'm finishing a lot of primary within like 3 to 4 days. Like I know a lot of people are talking about 2 to 3 weeks. And that's where I go.
We lose Bob?
It's frozen.
There's a lot of different considerations to look at.
Okay.
And maybe it's just that I'm talking confidently that a lot of people are like going, whoa, where are you getting all this stuff? But this is just like consistent stuff that I'm seeing on my system as opposed to other people's systems.
So have you mashed higher than say like a 165? Have you gone to
all the time? Yeah, I've done as crazy as going from mashing at 135 to then raising to 185, then bringing back down to 150 to 155, and then doing another rest.
He's adding enzymes in between there. That's not just right, like.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at that kind of a rest, what I would do is I would actually add Termamil at 135, and a lot of times I've gotten really, really high extract off of that because the Termamil is working at all the different temperatures up to 185 to that actual gelatinization point. Then I'm bringing it all the way back down and then adding the Sebamil, and then getting off of like 12 pounds, getting like a 1060 off of post boil. I mean, there'd probably be like a 1050 going into boil.
You're using millet as your primary base?
Typically, yeah. Usually most of my grists are about 80% millet.
Have you tried a single infusion mash striking at, say, 164, 168?
I do a lot of striking right now at 165 single infusion, where I go from 165, where I've already added the Termamil to the water, add the malt, then at the temperature of like the 12 to 14 pounds of grain that I'm adding to that, 6 gallons of strike water, brings it down to the 155, 150 mark. Then I'm adding the Sebamil. Then I'm resting for another hour, depending on how long it took down to get to 165 to 150, 155.
Where do you guys get your millet? Where do you get your grain?
Grouse.
Mostly grouse.
Malting in California.
The rice comes from Eckert, Chico, which is in Chico.
Steinbart's, are they carrying it? Or
no, we have to get it through
a non-GF.
In Ashland, there is a company called Gluten Free Homebrewing. It's the exclusive distributor of both those small houses.
They're in Ashland.
Yeah.
Okay. Are all you guys using that stuff?
Yeah, anybody brewing all grain is. Some people can get some stuff through Colorado Malting Company.
Some are also malting their own.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people garage malt. Okay. Who's with you,
Yeah.
Bob?
Shout out to Ed. Say what?
Who's with you?
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the lead in. I've got a newcomer to the group with me who just so happens to own Skyland Aleworks out of Corona, California, who just was diagnosed celiac 3 weeks ago.
Okay, yeah, he introduced himself to the club.
Jim, it's me, JP. We talked, actually, that ended up being the day before my son was born.
Congratulations.
There you go.
Hey, Bob, your camera is really dirty. Hey, Bob.
I connected
I think it looks streaky. Like, can you wipe your camera? Because it looks real streaky.
Okay.
We can't, and you're also backlit, but oh boy, that's a pre-show. It got streakier.
Good. That's what you get.
Poor backlighting.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, thanks
We
for
look like we
joining
have halos, so that we can look like we have a divine viewpoint on this.
Nice aura, Bob. Nice aura.
What I'm all about, guys, it's all about the vibes, yo. So Dominique wants to help us with our lighting. I don't know if it's going to help, but we'll figure it out.
I trust her more than you. I'm going to be completely honest.
We're working on it. just like my the staging on most of my social media photos. Still needs a lot of work.
You're a pro now. You have to actually take that stuff seriously. You've been doing better with the third contact pictures. Look a lot better than just the homebrew pictures.
Portrait mode is the winner.
There you go.
But I wanted to give Jim a chance to tell a little bit about his story since I heard you telling your story, Joe. So I thought it was a chance to give Jim a chance to have the floor for just a second.
All right, go for it.
Well, guys, I started my brewery about 4 years ago. Got started, been doing real well and enjoying life, and went to the doctor, and they decided they were going to do my over 50 probing, if you know what I mean. They turned around and asked me a bunch of questions, and I said, I've always had this problem with my stomach. And they did the blood test on me, sent me for the blood test. I told him, look, I own a brewery. You can't put me on a diet like this. And he says, well, I'll let you have one 12-ounce beer a day as long as you cut out all other gluten. I said, okay, I'll accept that. Went and took the blood test, cut everything out. Went back 3 weeks later. They said, you're at least gluten intolerant because we have the results back from your blood test. They said, we'd like to go ahead and do the probe down the front side now. And I'm like, well, while I was on this, I slipped up twice and got ill. And they went, guess what? You're celiac. We don't need to do the endoscopy. So that's when I reached out to you guys and said, I need to figure this thing out because while I'm at my brewery, I need something to drink.
Yeah. Yeah. So
are you considering converting your brewery to a gluten-free brewery?
I will be doing gluten-free beers. I will not be a dedicated gluten-free.
Like gluten reduced or gluten-free?
No, we'll be doing gluten-free beers.
Okay, cool.
But I will not be doing all gluten-free beers.
Gotcha.
Yep. So yeah, we're really excited to bring him to the club. That's
great.
We've been brewing an amber lager here today. I've been showing him some of my methods and whatnot, and getting really excited just to have another local down here in Southern California who gets it.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
So I'll be brewing my first batch this week, and it'll be a gluten-free brewed IPA.
Cool.
Yep, really excited to see how that comes out. He sounds like he's got a really fantastic recipe, so I'm really excited to try it.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Send a sample.
Awesome. Well, yeah.
Peanut gallery.
Yeah. It's all about the QC.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the QC. Yeah, I see you guys. Free beer.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Welcome to the club, and it's nice to meet you, Jim.
Thanks. Thank you very much for inviting me into this.
Yep.
Of course.
That's good to actually meet you. See you in person.
Yeah, there's JP right there.
Yeah.
on the other side of all the other windows that
Yes.
we have here.
I'm glad you two got connected.
Yeah, no, it's been great. You know, it's interesting enough that one of the people that I did a podcast with also knew Jim as well. So
Great.
any of you guys with local podcasters near you, do your local circuit and do your podcasts. It will help. Trust me, it will help.
Right on. All right. Should we call it a day, you guys? I saw that Stuart gave us a breakdown of the 100% millet malt wort, and I'll pass that along, and I'll post it to the webpage here.
Yeah, just a quick note on that. It was interesting because they're trying to. I mean, this was a lab study, right? So it's 100% millet malt that I think they malted. But enzymes and pH temperatures, they may all play a factor in what you're getting out of your carbohydrate structure.
That was my other question is what's your traditional pHs that you're getting out of the ass end of your mashes?
They're hanging in mine, at least. I do this pretty much the same water additions that I would do to barley, and they're mirroring what I would expect to get. So it's 5.2, 5.4.
I've been running at about 5.3, 5.3.
Yeah. That's where I was.
Hey, Joe. Don't forget the question.
Oh, Ben's question.
To get answered was about Octa White. I'm not sure.
Hey, Kale, can you hold on a second? They're retrieving ice for the front end, and it always gets a little bit noisy, and we're not able to hear you.
Okay.
There you go. You're good.
It's all good.
All right.
Yeah. So Ben's question was about Opta White using beer. Apparently, it's a wine nutrient that they use in white wines and meads for improving mouthfeel. And his question was, could this help with body mouthfeel in a GF beer? I'm not sure if you know anything about this Opta White yeast nutrient. So that's what his question was. And could it slow down the degradation of flavors and aromas over time in heavily hopped beer after bottling?
Here's the question. Okay, I couldn't find it. I wanted the question. It was on the event page.
So this is just straight inactivated yeast. It's not fortified in any way. So I think the only thing that you're getting out of this is maybe some zinc. You know, think about nitrogen, potassium, phosphate, like all the trace elements. I don't know if OptiWhite is a complete nutrient blend that is going to give you what you need. If you can source the Y yeast nutrient blend, which is a full range, that may do a little bit better of a job. Yeah. Even though OptiWhite is a Lallemand product, it's an enology product, so it's specific to wine, so specific to fructose, sucrose.
But given the fructose and sucrose we have in some of the beers, some of those actually do work.
Would help, but you're dealing with more than those two basic sugars, you know, that you're not dealing with wine. So I would switch up to a full nutrient blend. I think Y yeast actually has the best one out right now. But it's what I use in I make cider at home, and it's what I use in my cider. even though I could get my own stuff for free.
Any other
All right.
questions?
I don't have any more. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. April, I think I'm going to see if I can have the dude from, I should maybe point this at me. I'm going to try and have the dude from Nectar Creek come and do a mead presentation. Wait, my wife taught me this. It's the got to do the MySpace angle. You look bad if you shine it up your nose. So I'm going to try and have the Nectar Creek guy come and talk about mead next week, or next month rather, and then we'll have to figure out what to do with Memorial Day in May. So if you guys have any other suggestions for meeting topics and things like that, please let me know.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for
Great,
showing up.
Joe,
Thanks for setting it up.
you mentioned having, we have a lot of issues coming up with the fourth Sunday. Like, should we make
Move
a
off
change
the
on
last
that?
Sunday?
Like a third
Yeah,
Sunday,
possibly.
or-
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at it and get with Groundbreaker too, because they're the ones that graciously host.
Right.
And we'll have to see there, but I think Sundays are definitely going to be our day because that's their slowest day that people are available.
Okay. Maybe like third Sundays or something.
Possibly.
Maybe put out a vote there.
Yeah. Get with James and Jesse.
Send an email out to your membership. Anybody that wants to try our yeast, all I need is an address, shipping address,
Okay.
and what yeast or bacteria that they want. So our whole range of lactobacterium is available for you guys to confirm. So
all right, great.
Say the word, and I'll send it your way.
Rather than just blast it out to the Facebook page, I'll probably make people email me.
Yes.
And then I'll put you in contact with them. So that way I don't post something like, hey, here's the guy. And then because our page is public.
Okay.
And I don't want everybody to just inundate you with requests.
Okay.
All right.
That's wonderful.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good up.
So, you said this is purchase from home.
Yep.